The emergency broadcast cut through every frequency in human space without warning. Rachel Torres had been reviewing supply reports in her office when the screens went dark, and a face appeared that nobody on Earth had seen before. The creature looked like a bird crossed with a person, covered in silver feathers with large black eyes that seemed to hold an ocean of exhaustion. "People of Earth," the alien said, and its voice carried a translator's flat tone. "My name is Tillith. I represent the Galactic Council. We are dying." Rachel leaned forward. In her 20 years of military service, she had imagined first contact 1,000 different ways. None of them started like this. 40 cycles ago, your world sent messages into space. You asked to join our community. We ignored you. We called your planet a Deathworld. We said your species was too violent, too dangerous. We were afraid of you. Tillith's feathers ruffled. We were fools. Now 12 species face extinction, and we have nowhere else to turn. The broadcast showed images that made Rachel's stomach turn. Massive organic ships covered planets like mold on bread. Cities dissolved into gray sludge. Millions of aliens fled in panic as something consumed everything in its path. They are called the Devourers, Tillith continued. They arrived from deep space 5 cycles ago. They eat everything. Rock, metal, flesh. They cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be stopped. Our weapons barely slow them down. We have lost 60 billion souls. We will lose billions more. Rachel watched the carnage. The aliens fought with energy weapons that looked beautiful but seemed useless. Entire fleets fired at the organic ships and accomplished nothing. The Devourers just kept coming, kept eating, kept growing. We debated for weeks before making this decision, Tillith said. Many on the council still believe you are too dangerous. But we are desperate. We need soldiers who understand violence in ways we cannot. We need people from a death world. The alien paused. We need you to save us. The broadcast ended. Within minutes, every news channel on Earth exploded with discussion. Rachel's communicator buzzed with urgent messages. An hour later, she sat in a conference room with 15 other senior commanders. General Hayes spoke first. They ignored us for 40 years, made us feel like animals. Now they want our help. They're dying, someone said. So, let them die. Hayes slammed his hand on the table. We tried peace. We offered friendship. They called us monsters and quarantined our entire world. Now their problem becomes our problem? Rachel understood the anger. She felt it too. When Earth had discovered faster-than-light travel, humanity had been excited to meet their neighbors. Instead, the galaxy had looked at human history and recoiled in horror. All those wars, all that violence. The Galactic Council had declared Earth too dangerous for contact and established a barrier around their solar system. Humanity had been isolated, alone, treated like a disease. If we help them, we prove them right, another commander argued. They'll see us as attack dogs. Useful weapons, nothing more. And if we don't help, Rachel finally spoke, then billions die and eventually those things might reach Earth. What then? The room went quiet. David Park, one of the younger officers, cleared his throat. Ma'am, with respect, this could be our chance. If we save them, they have to accept us. They'll have no choice. Or they'll fear us even more, Hayes countered. The debate raged for hours. Rachel listened to every argument. The anger made sense. The fear made sense. But something Tillith had said stuck in her mind. They called your planet a death world. Earth was harsh compared to most inhabited worlds in the galaxy. Humanity had evolved fighting gravity, weather, disease, and each other. That struggle had made them strong but also brutal. Finally, the vote came. By a narrow margin, humanity agreed to help. But there would be conditions. Humans would fight under human command. They would use human tactics. And when the war ended, Earth would have a permanent seat on the Galactic Council with no restrictions. Rachel found herself chosen to lead the first wave. She assembled her fleet over the next 3 weeks. 20 ships carrying 10,000 soldiers. Not a massive force, but enough to make a difference, or enough to die trying. As they prepared to launch, David approached her in the hangar. Do you think we're making a mistake? Rachel watched soldiers loading equipment onto transport ships. These were volunteers, every one of them. They knew the risks. Probably, she admitted. But sitting back while billions die would be a bigger mistake. At least this way we choose who we become. And if they still fear us after, then at least they'll be alive to fear us. Rachel picked up her helmet. Besides, they asked for violence. They asked for Deathworlders. We're just giving them what they wanted. The fleet launched on schedule. As Earth shrunk behind them, Rachel thought about Tilith's words. We need people who understand violence. The Galactic Council had called humanity monsters for decades. Now they wanted those monsters to fight their war. Rachel wondered if they understood what they had actually asked for. Humanity knew violence, yes. But humanity also knew something the galaxy had forgotten. Sometimes survival required becoming the thing you feared most. The journey to the outer defensive line would take 6 days. Rachel used that time to review everything they knew about the Devourers. It wasn't much. The enemy adapted quickly. They consumed everything, and they never stopped. Her tactical team built a dozen attack plans. None felt adequate. On the 6th day, they arrived at Theta Station, the last stronghold before Devourer territory. The alien fleet waited there, hundreds of ships in defensive formation. They looked elegant and advanced. Rachel's ships looked brutal by comparison, covered in armor plating and weapon systems. An incoming transmission showed Tilith's face. The alien looked even more exhausted than before. Commander Torres, thank you for coming. We have much to discuss about strategy. Rachel nodded slowly. Yes, we do. But first I need to see them. Take us to the front line. My people need to know what we're fighting. Tilith's feathers flattened nervously. Very well, follow us. And Commander? Prepare yourself. Nothing prepares you for the Devourers. As the fleet moved toward the battle zone, Rachel gathered her officers. Whatever we see out there, remember why we came. Not for them, for us. To prove we're more than what they think we are. But deep down, Rachel worried about something else. What if the galaxy was right about humanity? What if this war turned them into the monsters everyone feared? She pushed the thought away. There would be time for philosophy later. Right now, people were dying, and Earth's monsters had a job to do. The first thing Rachel noticed about the Devourers was the smell. Even through the ship's filtered air systems, something felt wrong. The organic vessels looked like tumors floating in space, pulsing with sick light. They moved without engines, growing appendages to push themselves forward, then absorbing those same appendages back into their mass. How many? Rachel asked. Tilith's voice came through the communicator with barely concealed terror. This is a small group. Maybe 300 vessels. We have seen swarms of 10,000. Rachel's tactical officer whistled low. The human fleet had 20 ships. The alien defensive fleet had perhaps 200, and this was considered a small enemy force. How do you usually fight them? Rachel asked. Admiral Quillon appeared on screen, an insectoid creature with 4 arms and mandibles that clicked when he spoke. We maintain defensive formations. Our energy shields can withstand their initial assault for approximately 40 minutes. We focus fire on the largest vessels, attempting to burn through their outer layers. When shields fail, we retreat to the next defensive line. How often do you win? Quellon's mandibles stopped clicking. The silence answered her question. Rachel turned to her fleet. New plan. We're going in close. Ram speed. The human ships broke formation before anyone could object. Alarms sounded across the alien fleet as they watched 20 Earth vessels accelerate directly toward the Devourer swarm. What are they doing? Someone shouted over the open channel. Dying, Quillon said flatly. They are dying, but Rachel's ships didn't die. The first human vessel, a heavy cruiser named Providence, crashed directly into a Devourer ship. The organic hull absorbed the impact for a moment. Then the Providence fired its main guns point blank. The explosion tore through the Devourer from the inside out, spraying biological matter across space. All ships engage close range, Rachel ordered. Don't give them time to adapt. Hit them hard, hit them fast, hit them everywhere. The human fleet swarmed like wolves. They used their armor to ram into Devourer vessels, fired kinetic rounds that punched through organic tissue, then backed off before the enemy could retaliate. The aliens watched in shock as humanity fought with no shields, no elegant formations, just brutal aggression. They're insane, Tilith whispered. The Devourers responded. Their vessels sprouted limbs that grabbed at human ships. Acid sprayed across armor. One frigate got caught in a biomechanical grip and was pulled into a Devourer's mass. But before the organic ship could consume it, the frigate's self-destruct activated. The explosion destroyed both vessels. They killed themselves, an alien officer said in horror. Better than being eaten, David Park responded from his position on Rachel's ship. He watched the battle with growing unease. This wasn't the war he'd imagined. There was no honor here, no clean strategy, just violence. Rachel noticed the alien fleet still hanging back. Kelon, we need support. Either fight with us or get out of the way. We cannot fight like this. It violates every tactical principle. You have no defensive line, no cover, no coordination. We don't need coordination. We need to kill them before they kill us. Rachel watched another Devourer ship explode. Your way hasn't worked. Try ours. Reluctantly, some alien vessels moved forward, but they maintained their shields, their formations, their discipline. The Devourers adapted quickly. They began targeting the organized alien ships, ignoring the chaotic human vessels. Within minutes, 3 alien ships fell, their shields overwhelmed by focused assault. Scatter, Rachel ordered on the open channel. Stop fighting like a formation and fight like survivors. Some aliens listened. Most didn't. Rachel watched helplessly as Quellon's command ship took critical damage. The admiral refused to break formation even as his vessel vented atmosphere. Then something changed. Sergeant Lisa Webb, commanding a boarding shuttle, made a decision that would haunt the galaxy. Her transport approached a damaged Devourer vessel and didn't fire weapons. Instead, she ordered her team to breach the organic hull and go inside. Webb, what are you doing? Rachel demanded. Testing a theory, Commander. These things are alive. They have to have vital organs. I'm going hunting. Lisa and 40 Marines cut their way into the Devourer ship. The interior looked like the inside of an intestine, all pulsing walls and acidic fluids. Her team wore heavy armor and carried chemical weapons that the Galactic Council had banned centuries ago. White phosphorus grenades, napalm throwers, weapons designed to burn and poison and destroy without mercy. The Devourer tried to close the wound in its hull. Lisa's team moved deeper, following what looked like a network of veins towards something that might be a heart or brain or whatever these things used. They found it in a central chamber, a mass of neural tissue floating in organic fluid. Lisa's team emptied their chemical weapons into it. The Devourer ship spasmed. Its external weapons stopped firing. Its movement became erratic. Then it simply died, drifting in space like a corpse. It worked, Lisa reported, her voice shaking. We can kill them from the inside. Rachel felt sick. This was brutal even by human standards, but it was effective. All boarding teams, you have new orders. Find a wounded Devourer and breach. Target their internal structures. Over the next 4 hours, the battle turned into a nightmare. Human soldiers fought inside living ships, burning their way through alien biology. The Devourers tried to adapt, growing antibodies and defensive cells, but humanity had evolved fighting diseases on a death world. They knew how to kill biology from the inside. By the time the swarm retreated, both sides had taken heavy losses. 30% of the human fleet was destroyed or crippled. 60% of the alien fleet was gone. But the Devourers had been driven back for the first time in months. Rachel stood in the hangar as her boarding teams returned. They looked like they'd been through hell. Their armor was corroded by alien acids. Some Marines were injured by the biological defenses they'd encountered, and their eyes held something dark that Rachel recognized. Combat trauma. The look of people who'd done terrible things to survive. Tillith arrived with medical teams to help the wounded. The alien looked at the human soldiers with open fear now. What you did inside those ships, that was barbaric. That was necessary, Rachel replied coldly. You asked for our help. This is how we help. We did not ask for this. We asked for soldiers, not butchers. Lisa Webb limped past, still covered in biological slime from inside the Devourer ship. She heard Tillith's comment and stopped. You asked for Deathworlders, Ambassador. Did you think that was just a fancy word? We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every day. We learned to kill back. You wanted that skill. Don't complain when we use it. Tillith had no response. The aliens simply stared at these humans who fought by entering their enemy's body like a disease, who used weapons so terrible that civilized species had banned them, who seemed to embrace violence in ways that made even the Devourers look merciful. Admiral Quellon survived the battle barely. He met with Rachel afterward, his exoskeleton cracked and leaking. Your tactics saved us today, but at what cost? We have principles, Commander Torres, ways of warfare that separate us from animals. Rachel thought about the Marines who died inside those ships, about the psychological damage her people would carry forever, about the galaxy's judgment. Maybe principles are a luxury you can't afford anymore. The Devourers don't care about your morals. They just want to eat. We gave you a chance to survive. If that makes us animals, then be grateful animals showed up to help. As the combined fleet regrouped, Rachel received reports from across the sector. Word of the battle was spreading. Some aliens called humanity saviors. Others called them monsters. The Galactic Council demanded a full report on human tactics and weapons. They were already worried about their new allies. David found Rachel alone in the observation deck looking out at the stars. "We won today. Isn't that worth something? We won one battle, and already they fear us more than they fear the Devourers." Rachel pulled up casualty reports. "We lost 3,000 people today, David, and the ones who survived will never be the same. Lisa Webb killed an entire ship by herself. The aliens are calling her the Butcher. How many more battles before we all become butchers? We knew it would be ugly. Knowing and living it are different things." Rachel closed the reports. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we plan the next assault, and the one after that. This war is just beginning and I'm already tired of it." As David left, Rachel wondered what they were becoming. Earth had sent its warriors to save the galaxy, but every battle stripped away a little more of their humanity. The Devourers consumed flesh and bone. This war was consuming something more precious, and Rachel feared that by the time they won, there would be nothing good left to save. 3 months into the war, humanity had become the galaxy's most effective weapon and its worst nightmare. Rachel stood in a strategy room surrounded by holographic displays showing 17 different battlefronts. Everyone showed the same story: humans winning through methods that made civilized species sick. "Spore Protocol is ready for deployment," announced Dr. Sarah Lynn, a xenobiologist who'd been seconded to the military. She looked exhausted, her lab coat stained and her hands shaking slightly. "It targets the Devourer's cellular structure specifically. Won't harm other carbon-based life." "How does it work?" Rachel asked. Sarah pulled up a simulation. "We engineered a fungal weapon that grows inside Devourer tissue and breaks down their ability to consume matter. Essentially, it gives them cancer. They starved to death over approximately 2 weeks." The room went silent. Even Rachel, who'd seen terrible things in this war, felt uncomfortable. "That's biological warfare." "Yes," Sarah admitted. "It violates the Galactic Convention on Humane Warfare, but it's effective. One deployment could clear an entire sector." Tillith was present at the meeting representing the Council. The aliens' feathers had lost their silver sheen over the past months, turning dull gray. "We cannot use this. The convention exists for a reason." "The convention was written by species that never fought for survival," Rachel replied. "The Devourers don't care about your rules. They're winning because you fight with one hand tied behind your back. If we abandon our principles, we become no better than them." Rachel leaned forward. "Tillith, I've watched the Devourers consume 4 colony worlds in the past month. Billions dead. If this weapon can stop that, then yes, we're using it. The Council will never approve. Then don't tell the Council until after it works." Rachel turned to Sarah. "Deploy the weapon at the Helix Nebula. That's where their largest swarm is forming." Over the next week, human ships spread the spores across the nebula. The results were exactly as Sarah predicted. Devourer ships began to fail, their organic systems breaking down from within. The swarm that had been threatening 6 systems collapsed in on itself. The galaxy celebrated the victory. Then they learned how it was achieved. News organizations across every species showed images of Devourer vessels rotting in space, their crews dying slowly from what was essentially weaponized disease. Public opinion turned sharply against humanity. "They fight like demons," one alien journalist reported. "Without honor, without mercy. Perhaps we traded one monster for another." The criticism meant nothing at the New Covenant siege. A Devourer swarm surrounded the colony, home to 3 billion civilians from multiple species. The alien defense fleet fought bravely but was overwhelmed. They sent one final transmission asking for evacuation ships before the Devourers broke through. Rachel's fleet arrived 12 hours later. "Too late for evacuation, but not too late to fight. They're already on the surface," her tactical officer reported. "Civilian centers are being consumed. We have maybe 6 hours before the planet is lost." Rachel made a decision that would define her legacy. Prepare kinetic bombardment. Target the Devourer landing sites. David, now serving as her diplomatic liaison, objected immediately. "That will kill millions of civilians, the ones who haven't been evacuated yet. The Devourers will kill billions. We strike the landing sites, we stop the spread. Some die so others can live. That's not our choice to make." Rachel turned to face him. "It became our choice when we agreed to fight this war. Now either help or get out of my way." David left the bridge. Rachel gave the order. Human ships began dropping massive tungsten rods from orbit. The projectiles fell at incredible speed, hitting with the force of nuclear weapons. They obliterated the Devourer landing sites and everything around them. The bombardment worked. The Devourer advance stopped. But the cost was staggering. 40 million civilians died in the strikes. Cities were flattened. Forests burned. The planet's ecosystem was devastated by the impacts. The survivors called it the burning of New Covenant. They blamed humanity, even though the Devourers had been destroying their world. Rachel received death threats from 3 different species. Protests erupted across the galaxy demanding that humans be removed from the war. Meanwhile, something else was happening. Human intelligence intercepted communication between council members discussing what they called the human problem. These officials worried that humanity was becoming too powerful, too aggressive. They talked about plans to limit human authority after the war. Some even suggested turning on Earth once the Devourers were defeated. Rachel called a meeting of her senior staff and shared the intelligence. They want to use us to win their war, then dispose of us like weapons that are too dangerous to keep. Lisa Webb, now a major after her success in boarding actions, laughed bitterly. Of course they do. We scare them more than the enemy. Maybe we should scare them, suggested Colonel Raymond, one of Rachel's oldest friends. They need to understand that humanity isn't some attack dog they can put down when convenient. Are you suggesting we threaten the council? David asked in disbelief. He'd been allowed back on the ship but remained isolated from command decisions. I'm suggesting we remind them who's keeping them alive, Raymond replied. Rachel considered this carefully. No threats, but we prepare contingencies. If they try to move against us, we need leverage. Over the next weeks, humanity quietly prepared what they called protocol extinction. The details were classified, but rumors spread. Some said it was a weapon that could sterilize star systems. Others claimed humans had learned to control the Devourers themselves. The truth remained hidden, but the rumors served their purpose. The council became more cautious in their criticism. Sarah made another breakthrough during this time. While studying captured Devourer tissue, she noticed something unusual. These cells are too sophisticated, she told Rachel. The way they adapt, the way they coordinate across millions of vessels. This isn't natural evolution. Someone designed this. Designed it? The Devourers are weapons? Or victims? I'm not sure yet, but there's complex DNA buried deep in their cells that doesn't match their current biology. It's like finding human DNA in a virus. Something transformed them into what they are now. Does it matter? They're still trying to eat the galaxy. Sarah hesitated. It might matter. If they were transformed, maybe they can be changed back. But I need more samples. Live ones if possible. Rachel authorized a risky mission to capture intact Devourer organisms. Lisa volunteered to lead it, taking a small team into a wounded Devourer vessel before it could repair itself. They secured several living samples and barely escaped. In her lab, Sarah studied the creatures with growing fascination and horror. Under microscopes, she could see the organisms trying to communicate through chemical signals. They seemed to be in pain, constantly hungry but unable to stop eating even when full. They're not evil, Sarah realized. They're suffering. This constant consumption isn't desire, it's compulsion. They can't help themselves. She tried to share her findings with Rachel, but the commander was focused on the next battle. Later, Sarah, right now I need weapons, not theories. David found Sarah crying in her lab that night. They won't listen, she said. Everyone sees the Devourers as monsters. But they're victims of something worse. And we're killing them by the billions without even asking questions. What would you have us do? Stop fighting while they eat the galaxy? I don't know. But there has to be another way. If we could understand them, communicate with them, maybe we could help instead of destroy. David looked at the samples in their containment fields. Does Rachel know about this? I've tried to tell her. She's not interested. She's too focused on winning. Then we need to make her interested. David thought for a moment. Or we go over her head. Take this to the council directly. Sarah shook her head. You saw what happened at New Covenant. Rachel suppressed evidence that some civilians might have survived. She said it would complicate the mission. If she finds out I'm questioning orders, she'll remove me from the project. Then we keep it quiet, for now. But secrets were hard to keep in wartime. Rachel's intelligence officers monitored all communications, looking for security breaches. When they discovered Sarah and David sharing research without authorization, Rachel confronted them both. "You're undermining military operations," she said coldly, spreading theories that the enemy might be victims. "Do you understand what that does to morale, to our ability to fight?" "The truth matters, Commander," David replied. "The truth is that millions are dying every day. The truth is that every second we hesitate, the Devourers consume another world. Your theories don't change that." Sarah stood her ground. "What if we're wrong? What if there's a way to cure them instead of killing them? Then you better find it fast, because I'm not stopping this war on what if." Rachel had Sarah's lab put under surveillance and David reassigned to administrative duties far from the front lines. But the damage was done. David leaked Sarah's findings to sympathetic members of the Council. Within days, the information spread across the galaxy. Some species demanded an immediate ceasefire to investigate. Others supported humanity's total war approach. The unity that fear of the Devourers had created began to crack. Sarah Lynn barely slept anymore. Her research lab hummed with activity at all hours as she studied the captured Devourer samples. Every test revealed something new, something that contradicted everything they thought they knew about the enemy. The organisms in her containment fields moved in patterns that seemed almost purposeful, forming shapes that resembled mathematical equations. Her assistant noticed it first. "Doctor, look at this." The cells are arranging themselves in repeating sequences. It's like they're trying to write something. Sarah watched through the microscope. The pattern repeated every 47 seconds. Prime numbers, Fibonacci sequences, universal mathematical constants. These weren't random movements. This was communication. "They're intelligent," Sarah whispered. "Not just alive, but aware." She spent 3 days decoding the patterns. When she finally understood what the Devourer samples were trying to say, she had to sit down. The message was simple and heartbreaking. "Help us, please, we cannot stop." Sarah immediately tried to contact Rachel, but her security clearance had been restricted after the leak. Instead, she sent an encrypted message to David, who was now stationed at a logistics hub far from the fighting. "I have proof. They're conscious. They're asking for help. We need to share this." David arrived within 2 days, using his remaining authority to access the research station. Sarah showed him everything. The mathematical communications, the evidence of sophisticated neural structures, the DNA analysis that proved the Devourers had once been something else entirely. "This changes everything," David said. "It should. But will it?" Sarah pulled up genetic comparisons. "Look at this. The base DNA is similar to a species called the Harvesters. They existed about 3,000 years ago, according to galactic records. Peaceful traders who specialized in agricultural technology. Then they disappeared from history suddenly. No records explain what happened to them. You think the Harvesters became the Devourers? I think someone turned them into the Devourers. This level of genetic modification is deliberate, sophisticated. It's biological warfare on a scale we've never seen. Someone took a peaceful species and transformed them into an unstoppable weapon. And that weapon is still active, still following its programming even after thousands of years. David looked at the samples, seeing them differently now. Not monsters, but victims. "We need to tell the Council. This could end the war without more killing. Rachel will try to stop us." "Rachel doesn't control the Council." David checked his communicator. "Ambassador Tillith is at the research station 3 sectors away. I can get us there in 6 hours if we leave now." They took Sarah's research vessel and left without authorization. Rachel's security team noticed their departure immediately and sent interceptors. But David had planned their route through civilian traffic lanes where military ships couldn't follow without causing incidents. They reached Tillith ahead of the interceptors. The ambassador listened to Sarah's presentation with growing shock. "You are certain of this?" Tillith asked, examining the data. "As certain as science allows," Sarah replied. "The Devourers are victims of biological engineering. They're conscious, in pain, and unable to control their actions. They've been trying to communicate, but we interpreted their signals as attack patterns. We've been fighting people who are begging for help." Tillith's feathers ruffled anxiously. "If this is true, we have committed genocide. Billions of thinking beings killed because we didn't understand. We were defending ourselves," David said, "but now we know better. We have to try something different." Before Tillith could respond, Rachel's face appeared on every screen in the station. "Dr. Lynn, Officer Park, you are both under arrest for violating military protocol and compromising operational security." Surrender immediately. Commander Torres, Tillith interjected. We need to discuss these findings. If the Devourers are sapient beings under biological compulsion, then they're still trying to eat the galaxy, Rachel interrupted. Their motivation doesn't change the threat. We can't negotiate with them. We can only stop them, but we might be able to cure them, Sarah insisted. If we can identify the genetic modifications and reverse them, how long would that take? Months? Years? How many more billions die while you run experiments? How many billions have we killed who might have been saved? Sarah shot back. You've been so focused on winning that you stopped asking whether we're doing the right thing. Rachel's expression hardened. I'm focused on survival, on making sure this war ends with the galaxy intact. Your research is interesting, Doctor, but it doesn't change our mission. I'm taking this to the full council, Tillith announced. They deserve to know the truth about what we're fighting. Do that, and I'll tell them about the council members planning to turn on humanity after the war, Rachel replied coldly. We've intercepted your communications. We know some of you want to eliminate us once we're no longer useful. Maybe the galaxy should hear that truth too. The transmission ended. Tillith looked shaken. She's bluffing. Is she? David asked. We've given you everything in this war. Used our worst weapons, sacrificed thousands of soldiers, and now you want to punish us for being effective. Rachel has every right to be paranoid. Tillith couldn't deny it. The ambassador had sat in meetings where council members expressed those exact concerns. Humanity had become too powerful, too dangerous. Some officials had quietly discussed contingency plans. This is spiraling out of control, Tillith said. We asked humanity for help. They gave it. Now we fear them. They fear us. Meanwhile, the real enemy continues to advance. Sarah pulled up a new display. There's something else. A week ago, we detected unusual signals from deep space. Complex patterns that match the mathematical sequences the Devourer samples have been showing us. I think there's a central intelligence coordinating them. A core consciousness that controls the hive. You mean they have a leader? Or a prison? If the harvesters were transformed against their will, maybe some part of their original consciousness survives at the center of the swarm. And maybe it's been trying to reach out, trying to stop what it's become. David felt hope for the first time in months. If we could reach this core consciousness, communicate with it, maybe we could find a solution that doesn't require killing them all. Or maybe we're projecting what we want to believe, Tillith cautioned. The Devourers have destroyed too much, killed too many. Even if they were once innocent, what they've become cannot be allowed to continue. Sarah understood the conflict. I'm not saying we should stop defending ourselves, but we should at least try to communicate before we commit to total extermination. If there's even a chance we can help them, an alarm interrupted her. The research station's sensors detected incoming ships, human military vessels moving fast. She's coming to arrest us, David realized. Not if the council protects you, Tillith said. I'm declaring this station under diplomatic immunity. Any attack on it would be an act of war against the Galactic Council. Rachel's ship stopped at the station's border but maintained position. A tense standoff developed. Neither side wanted to fire first, but neither was willing to back down. The situation was transmitted across the galaxy. Watched by billions, public opinion fragmented completely. Some species praised Sarah and David for seeking a peaceful solution. Others condemned them as traitors who endangered the war effort. Arguments erupted in council chambers, on news broadcasts, and military units. The unity that had existed against the Devourers shattered. While everyone focused on the standoff, something unexpected happened. A small group of Devourer vessels broke away from the main swarm and approached neutral territory. They didn't attack. Instead, they broadcast the same mathematical sequences Sarah had discovered in her lab. A young communications officer at a monitoring station noticed the pattern. They're trying to talk to us, she realized. She forwarded the signal to every major command center, including Rachel's fleet and the research station where Sarah waited. Sarah decoded the message quickly. It was longer and more complex than the simple pleas her samples had been sending. This message told a story. 3,000 years ago, the harvesters had discovered an ancient weapon left behind by an extinct civilization. A biological failsafe designed to sterilize galaxies if certain conditions were met. The harvesters had tried to disable it, but the weapon activated and infected their entire species, transforming them into its tool. The consciousness sending the message identified itself as what remained of the Harvester collective memory. It had been fighting against the biological programming for millennia, trying to warn others, trying to stop the endless consumption. But the weapon's design was too sophisticated. It overrode their will, forced them to spread, forced them to consume. The message ended with coordinates, a location deep in what had been Harvester space, the source of the infection, the place where the ancient weapon still existed, and a warning. If you destroy us without destroying the source, it will adapt. It will find new hosts. It will start again. Sarah shared the message with everyone at the station. This is what I've been trying to tell you. They're victims, not villains. And killing them won't end the threat. We have to go to the source. Tillith forwarded the message to the full council. Within hours, it reached every corner of the galaxy. The debate intensified. Some called it a trap. Others saw it as the breakthrough they needed. Rachel watched the message from her command ship. Her expression was unreadable. Finally, she opened a channel to the research station. Dr. Lin, Officer Park, you win. Stand down and let's figure out what to do next. The emergency council session lasted 16 hours. Representatives from every species argued about what to do with the revelation about the Devourers. Rachel attended via hologram, standing before hundreds of alien officials who wanted answers about humanity's conduct in the war. You knew, accused Council Member Vornis, a crystalline being whose voice resonated like breaking glass. Your doctor discovered the Devourers were sapient months ago and you suppressed it. I made a tactical decision, Rachel replied. We were fighting a war. Questioning the enemy's nature would have cost lives. Whose lives? Because from where we stand, your forces have killed more Devourers than the rest of the galaxy combined. If they are victims, as Dr. Lin suggests, then you are guilty of mass murder. Rachel's hologram flickered as her anger rose. We saved your species from extinction. We used the weapons you were too civilized to use. We did your dirty work, and now you want to prosecute us for it? We asked for help, not genocide. You asked for Deathworlders. You got exactly what you asked for. The argument escalated until Tillith intervened. This blame serves no purpose. The question now is what we do next. The message gave us coordinates. We should send a mission to investigate the source. Admiral Quellen, still recovering from his injuries, spoke carefully. A reconnaissance mission makes sense. But who leads it? The Council's forces have proven inadequate against the Devourers. Humanity has the combat experience. But can we trust them with this responsibility? Rachel laughed bitterly. You don't trust us, but you need us. That's been the story of this entire war. David stood to speak. He'd been quiet during most of the session, but now he felt compelled to address the council. Commander Torres is right that we've done terrible things in this war. But we did them to save you. Now we have a chance to actually fix the problem instead of just fighting it. Let us try. And if we fail, then you can judge us. The Council will not authorize a purely human mission, Vornis stated. Then make it a joint mission, Sarah suggested from her seat next to David. Humans provide combat support. Council scientists provide research expertise, and we include representatives from the breakaway Devourer group that contacted us. They understand the threat better than anyone. The proposal was radical. Working directly with Devourers, even peaceful ones, terrified most council members, but they voted to approve it by a narrow margin. A joint task force would travel to the coordinates and investigate the source of the infection. Rachel was placed in command of the military forces. Sarah led the scientific team. Tillith represented the Council's interests. And 3 Devourer vessels, crewed by individuals who had somehow resisted their programming, joined the fleet. The mission launched 2 weeks later. 50 ships carrying 5,000 personnel from 24 species, and 3 Devourer vessels that everyone else kept their distance from. The human fleet remained separate from the Council ships. Trust was still broken. During the journey, tensions ran high. Human soldiers remembered fighting the Devourers for months. Seeing them as allies felt wrong. The Council representatives watched human personnel constantly, documenting every aggressive tendency. And the Devourers themselves remained isolated, communicating only through Sarah's team. Lisa Webb, now promoted to colonel, struggled more than most. She had killed hundreds of Devourers in boarding actions. Learning they were conscious, suffering beings made those deaths feel different. She requested transfer off the mission, but Rachel denied it. I need you here, Rachel told her. You understand the enemy better than anyone. That knowledge might save lives. I understand how to kill them. That's not the same thing. Maybe it is. Maybe knowing how to kill something helps you understand how to save it. Lisa didn't find that comforting. She threw herself into training exercises, trying to maintain readiness for whatever they would find. But her sleep was filled with nightmares of the devourers she'd killed, now imagining them pleading for mercy in voices she couldn't hear. Sarah spent her time working with the devourer representatives through sealed laboratory environments. She learned that resisting the biological compulsion required constant effort. The devourers described it as hunger beyond anything else in the universe, a need that overrode thought, morality, everything. Resisting meant being in constant agony. How do you manage it? Sarah asked one of them, a being who had taken the name Speaker through their translator. We remember what we were. We hold on to pieces of our past. But every day is battle. Every moment we must choose not to consume. And every moment that choice becomes harder. When we fix this, will you go back to being harvesters? Speaker's biomechanical body pulsed with what might have been laughter or crying. We do not know if there is anything left to go back to. We have been this too long. Maybe we are too changed. Maybe mercy is death, not cure. The conversation haunted Sarah. These beings had suffered for 3,000 years. Even if they could be saved, what kind of life awaited them? How did you recover from millennia of forced monstrosity? The fleet reached the coordinates after 3 weeks of travel. They found a dead system, all planets stripped of life long ago. At the center floated a massive structure, clearly artificial, organic in nature but shaped by intelligence. It looked like a massive seed pod kilometers across, pulsing with sick light. That's the source, Sarah confirmed after sensor analysis. It's still active. Still producing the biological agent that transformed the harvesters. Can we destroy it? Rachel asked. I don't know. It's been here for at least 5,000 years. Whatever civilization built it designed it to last. Admiral Quellon, commanding the Council forces, advocated for immediate attack. We should bombard it from orbit. Sterilize the entire area, and if that triggers a failsafe? Sarah countered. We don't understand the mechanism yet. Destroying it blindly might release something worse. While they debated, sensors detected movement. Devourer ships were arriving, hundreds of them, converging on the system from multiple directions. The main swarm had realized what the mission was trying to do and moved to stop them. They're protecting it, Rachel realized. The compulsion makes them defend the source of their infection, like antibodies protecting a virus. We're outnumbered 10-1, Quellon reported. We cannot win this engagement. Rachel looked at her tactical displays. She was right. A direct fight would end in annihilation, but running meant abandoning the mission and probably dooming the galaxy. The devourers would continue spreading until nothing remained. We need time, Sarah said. If I can study the structure, understand how it works, maybe I can find a way to shut it down safely. But I need at least 3 days. We won't last 3 hours against that swarm, Quellon replied. Rachel made a decision. The human fleet will hold them off. Council ships protect the research team. Get them to that structure and give them the time they need. Commander, that's suicide, Colonel Raymond objected. We can't stop that many. We don't have to stop them. We just have to slow them down. Rachel switched to fleet-wide communication. All human ships, this is it. Everything we've done in this war leads to this moment. Those devourers out there are victims, but they're also guards. And we're the only ones crazy enough to fight them. Buy our scientists time and maybe we end this for everyone. Lisa found Rachel before the battle began. This is a one-way trip, isn't it? Probably. Rachel checked her weapons. Any regrets? Too many to count. But not about being here. Lisa hesitated. Commander, I need to tell you something. During my last medical scan, they found devourer cells in my blood, from when I was infected during a boarding action 6 months ago. I've been fighting the compulsion for weeks. Rachel stared at her. You should have reported this, I know. But I wanted to be here, to see this through. Lisa's hands shook slightly. I can feel what they feel. The hunger, the need to consume. It takes everything I have to resist. I understand them now. What we did to them, what they're forced to do to others. Can you still fight? Yes, but I don't know for how long. Rachel put a hand on Lisa's shoulder. Then fight while you can. That's all any of us can do. The human fleet moved to intercept the devourer swarm while council ships escorted Sarah's research team to the ancient structure. The battle began within minutes. Humans fought with everything they had learned over months of brutal warfare. They used boarding tactics, chemical weapons, and sheer aggression, but they were vastly outnumbered. Ships fell one by one. The Providence, which had led humanity's first charge, was destroyed by concentrated fire. The Determination lasted longer, taking down 12 Devourer vessels before its hull breached. The Relentless lived up to its name, fighting even after losing main power until it was finally consumed. Rachel's command ship, the Vindication, held the center of the formation. She watched her fleet die around her, buying minutes with lives. All remaining ships focus fire on the largest vessels, make them work for every meter. On the ancient structure, Sarah and her team worked frantically. The technology was beyond anything they'd encountered. Organic computing systems that had run for millennia without maintenance. Biological data storage containing the history of the civilization that had built this weapon. "I found something," Sarah called to her team. "The weapon has a shutdown sequence, but it requires a living key. Someone has to interface with it directly, let it read their genetic code and verify they have the authority to deactivate it." "Do we have that authority?" Tillith asked. The creators left the sequence open to any sapient life. They built a weapon, but they also built a way to turn it off. They weren't monsters, just afraid. "What happens to whoever interfaces with it?" Sarah looked at the technical readouts. "The biological connection is permanent. They would become part of the system, conscious but unable to ever disconnect. A living prison. Someone would have to sacrifice themselves to save everyone else." Speaker, one of the Devourer representatives, moved toward the interface. "We will do this. We are already prisoners. At least this prison has purpose." "Wait," Sarah said. "There might be another way. If we can adapt the interface, use a proxy system." An explosion rocked the structure. One of the Devourer ships had broken through the Council defenses and was attacking. The research team had minutes, maybe seconds, before the structure was destroyed, or they were forced to evacuate. Speaker didn't wait for alternatives. The being connected directly to the ancient system. Its body convulsed as thousands of years of data flooded into its consciousness. It screamed, but not in pain. In understanding. In knowledge of everything the weapon had done, everyone it had destroyed. And then it activated the shutdown sequence. The change rippled across the galaxy at faster than light speed. Every Devourer vessel stopped moving simultaneously. The biological compulsion that had driven them for 3 millennia simply vanished. Billions of beings suddenly found themselves free of the hunger that had defined their existence, and then they started dying. Rachel watched from the Vindication as the Devourer swarm around her fleet began to fall apart. The ships didn't explode or burn. They just stopped functioning. Their organic systems, designed only to consume and spread, had no purpose without the compulsion. Like a body without a brain, they began to shut down. "What's happening?" Colonel Raymond asked. "The weapon's off," Rachel realized. "But they're dying anyway." Their biology was too specialized. Without the compulsion driving them, their bodies don't know what to do. Across the battlefield, human and council ships stopped firing. Everyone watched in silent horror as their enemy succumbed, not to weapons but to the absence of the force that had controlled them. Some Devourer vessels tried to maintain function, but most simply drifted, their crews suffocating as organic life support systems failed. Sarah's voice came through on the communication channel, shaking with grief. "The shutdown worked, but there's a cost. Most of the transformed harvesters can't survive without the compulsion. Their bodies have been too changed. We're estimating 90% casualties across the entire Devourer population." 90%, Tillith repeated in disbelief. "That's billions of beings. They were already dying. The compulsion was keeping them alive past their natural biology. Turning it off was like pulling life support." Sarah's voice broke. Speaker knew. It saw the data when it connected. It sacrificed itself and its entire species to save the galaxy. Rachel looked at her tactical display. 15 of her original 50 ships remained operational. Human casualties were at 68%. They had won, but the victory tasted like ashes. "All ships begin rescue operations. Save whoever we can from the disabled Devourer vessels." Over the next hours, they pulled survivors from the dying ships. Most were already dead. Those who lived were confused, traumatized, and afraid. Many begged to be killed rather than face existence without the compulsion that had defined them for so long. Lisa led one of the rescue teams. When she boarded a Devourer ship, she found its crew huddled in what passed for a control room. They were dying slowly, their biological systems failing. One of them looked at her with eyes that showed intelligence for the first time. "Kill us," it pleaded through a translator. "We do not know how to be anything else." Lisa thought about her own infection, the cells in her blood that made her feel their hunger. "I won't kill you, but I can't save you either. I'm sorry." "Then witness," the devourer said. "When we are gone, tell them we were not monsters. We were victims. We never wanted this." Lisa stayed with them until the end, holding their biomechanical hands as they died. She recorded their last words, their names from before the transformation, their hopes that the galaxy would remember them as people rather than weapons. Sarah's team managed to reach the ancient structure before it collapsed. Speaker remained connected to the system, its consciousness merged with the weapons database. It could still communicate, but barely. The interface was draining its life force to maintain the shutdown. "Is there a way to disconnect you?" Sarah asked desperately. "No," Speaker replied, its voice weak. "And I would not choose to even if there was. Someone must remain here, to guard against reactivation, to remember what happened. You'll be alone forever. We have been alone for 3,000 years. This loneliness has purpose. It is gift, not curse." Tilith approached the interface. "Speaker, your sacrifice saved the galaxy. The Council will honor your memory. Honor the harvesters who died. Honor the worlds we consumed. Honor the humans who fought what they believed were monsters. They did terrible things, but for right reasons. Do not let history forget that distinction." Speaker's vital signs began to fail. Sarah tried to stabilize the connection, but the being stopped her. "Let me go. I have done what was needed. Now let me rest." The consciousness that had once been Speaker faded, merging completely with the ancient system. Its last thought transmitted across all frequencies. "Forgive us. Forgive yourselves. And do better." The war was over, but the aftermath would last generations. Rachel returned to Earth to face war crimes tribunals. She was charged with excessive use of force, civilian casualties, and suppression of critical intelligence. The trials lasted 2 years. In the end, she was convicted on multiple counts and sentenced to house arrest for life. During her testimony, Rachel showed no remorse. "I made the choices I thought necessary. I saved billions of lives. If that makes me a war criminal, then I accept that judgment. But I won't apologize for keeping my people alive." The galaxy remained divided on her legacy. Some saw her as a hero who did what others couldn't. Others viewed her as proof that Deathworlders should never be trusted with power. Earth refused to acknowledge the tribunal's authority and gave Rachel a full military pension. David testified on her behalf, despite their conflicts during the war. Commander Torres was harsh, but she was also right about one thing. We were fighting an enemy that none of you could stop. She used terrible methods because they were the only methods that worked. Judge her if you want, but remember you asked for her help. Sarah dedicated her life to helping the surviving harvesters. About 10% of the devourer population survived the shutdown, roughly 3 billion beings. They needed medical care, psychological support, and help relearning how to exist without the compulsion. Sarah established clinics across multiple worlds, funded by donations from species who felt guilty about their role in the tragedy. Lisa never fully recovered from her infection. The devourer cells in her body remained, kept in check by constant medical treatment. She could feel echoes of the compulsion, phantom hunger that never fully disappeared. She wrote a book about her experiences titled Inside the Monster that became required reading at military academies across the galaxy. In her book, she wrote, "We called them devourers. We treated them as mindless eating machines. But every being we killed was conscious, suffering, and unable to stop. I will carry that knowledge until I die. War is full of necessary evils. Understanding which evils were truly necessary is the burden we carry afterward." Tilith worked to rebuild diplomatic relations between humanity and the galaxy. The alien had seen both the best and worst of Earth's people. Tilith's efforts resulted in humanity receiving limited council membership, with restrictions on military deployment outside their space without council approval. It was a compromise nobody liked, but everyone accepted. 10 years after the war, a memorial was built at the site of the ancient weapon. It honored all casualties, the harvesters who were transformed, the devourers who died, and the soldiers who fought them. Speaker's consciousness still existed within the deactivated weapon, serving as a permanent guardian. Visitors could communicate with it, learning the full history of what had happened. Rachel died 12 years after the war ended, still under house arrest. Thousands attended her funeral, both humans and aliens. The eulogies were complicated. No one knew quite how to summarize her life. Hero and war criminal, savior and destroyer, human and monster. David gave the main eulogy. Rachel Torres was asked to save the galaxy. She did it the only way she knew how. We can debate whether her methods were right. We can prosecute her for the terrible things she did, but we cannot deny that without her, we would all be dead. She saved us, and that salvation cost her everything. The surviving harvesters sent their own memorial, a biological sculpture that grew and changed over time. It depicted Speaker's sacrifice, the moment of choosing to become the key that freed everyone else. The sculpture included a plaque with words in the old harvester language, translated into every galactic tongue. Freedom requires sacrifice. Memory requires witnesses. Hope requires forgiveness. Humanity's reputation in the galaxy remained complicated. Some species wanted Earth isolated permanently, afraid of what Deathworlders might do if threatened again. Others sought trade and alliance, recognizing that harsh worlds produced strong people. A few species began programs to learn from human military doctrine, trying to understand how Deathworlders approached conflict. Earth itself had changed. The war had shown humanity that they were stronger than they realized, but also more frightening. Public debates raged about whether they should embrace their nature as warriors or reject it. Some argued for isolationism, withdrawing from galactic affairs entirely. Others wanted to use their military strength to maintain peace, becoming the galaxy's protectors. Sarah received the Council's highest civilian honor for her work with the Harvesters. During the ceremony, she spoke about the lessons of the war. We fought what we thought were monsters. We became monsters ourselves. And in the end, we discovered the monsters were victims all along. That's the tragedy we must never forget. Easy answers are comforting but usually wrong. Difficult truths are painful but necessary. 20 years after the war, a new generation came of age. Young people who only knew the conflict from history lessons and memorial sites. They asked questions their parents struggled to answer. Was the war justified? Were the brutal tactics necessary? Should humanity be proud or ashamed of their role? The answers remained complicated. Yes, humanity had saved the galaxy, but the cost was measured in billions of lives and the permanent loss of innocence for every species involved. The Harvesters were free but broken. The Council was safe but scarred. And humanity had proven itself both hero and villain simultaneously. David, now an old man, visited the memorial on the war's 25th anniversary. He stood before the sculpture honoring Speaker and thought about all the choices that had led them here. Could they have done better? Probably. Could they have done differently? Maybe. But they had done what they did, and now they had to live with it. A young harvester approached him, one of the generation born after the compulsion ended. You fought in the war, the alien said. You killed my ancestors. David nodded. Yes, I did. Or at least I gave orders that led to their deaths. Why? Because I thought I was saving the galaxy. Because I didn't understand what they were. Because I made mistakes. David looked at the young alien. I'm sorry. That doesn't fix anything. But I'm sorry. The harvester considered this. My parents survived the war. They told me about the humans who rescued them from a dying ship, about how you showed them kindness when you could have left them to die. They said humans were capable of terrible things, but also capable of mercy. They taught me to judge individuals, not species. That's wise. But it is hard. When I read about the war, about the billions who died, I feel anger. And when I read about the humans who helped afterward, I feel gratitude. Both emotions exist together. Then you understand the truth better than most, David said. Nothing about the war was simple. It was necessary and terrible, heroic and criminal. We saved you and destroyed you. All of that is true at once. The young harvester touched the memorial. Speaker gave everything to free us. I will not waste that gift by holding on to easy hatred. We will remember, but we will also forgive. And we will do better. David watched the alien walk away and felt something like hope. The war had broken. So much, but maybe the pieces could be built into something new, not the same as before. Broken things never healed perfectly. But perhaps they could create something honest, something that acknowledged the scars while still moving forward. Across the galaxy, the debate continued. Museums displayed artifacts from the war. Scholars published analyses of the tactics and decisions. Politicians used the conflict as evidence for whatever policy they wanted to promote. Everyone had an opinion about what the war meant. But those who had actually fought it knew a simpler truth. They had done terrible things for good reasons. They had saved lives by taking lives. They had become monsters to fight monsters, only to learn the monsters were victims. And they would carry that knowledge forever, a weight that couldn't be put down or shared with those who hadn't been there. The galaxy had pleaded for rescue. Humanity's Deathworlders had brought destruction. Both statements were true. And in the space between those truths, everyone had to figure out how to live with what they'd done and who they'd become. There were no clean answers, only survival, memory, and the eternal question of whether the ends had truly justified the means.